All right, so you're ready to go deep on this whole luck versus skill thing in Mahjong.
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of people wonder about.
Right.
It feels like there's this mystique,
It does.
especially when you see people playing at a high level, like in the World Mahjong Tour.
Absolutely.
How much of it is just like being dealt a good hand
Yeah.
versus actual strategy and skill?
Mhm.
So we're going to break all that down today using this article we found that goes pretty deep into the subject.
Interesting.
And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have a better grasp on how those elements actually work together and what makes the game so captivating.
Yeah, I think for a long time people thought of Mahjong as mostly a game of chance. You know, you get the tiles you get, and that's kind of it. But as the game has developed, we've seen that it's really not the case.
Yeah.
Especially at that competitive level, like we're talking about with the World Mahjong Tour, it becomes so much more about skill.
Well, I mean, you're right about those initial tiles, right? That's got to feel like sometimes you just get lucky.
You do.
You get dealt a great starting hand.
Sure.
And maybe that gives you an edge.
Absolutely.
But then this article starts talking about this concept of tile efficiency. And that seems to be where the real skill comes in.
Yeah.
So can you explain that a little bit?
Well, so imagine you get your hand right, and a new player, someone who's just starting out,
Right.
might just be looking for those really obvious combinations, hoping to win quickly. But a really skilled player is looking at each tile, thinking several steps ahead.
Oh, wow.
It's not just reacting to the draw.
Right.
It's about shaping the hand,
Interesting.
maximizing each move to create as many winning combinations as possible.
So they're not just playing the hand they're dealt. They're kind of like
They're influencing the hand.
influencing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And they're thinking ahead, too.
yeah, it's almost like chess with tiles, right?
Exactly.
Always thinking multiple moves ahead.
Yeah.
Anticipating not just your own hand,
Yeah.
but also...
What your opponents are doing.
Yeah,
That's a huge part of it.
And that kind of leads into that other thing you mentioned earlier, opponent reading,
That's right.
which to me sounds like one of those things that really separates,
The casual players from the pros.
yeah, the amateurs from the pros, for sure.
Absolutely.
So break that down for me.
Okay.
What does that actually look like in practice?
Well, obviously you're paying attention to what your opponents are discarding, right?
Sure.
That's a starting point.
Yeah.
But it's so much deeper than that.
Okay.
It's really like being a detective.
Interesting.
You're watching everything,
Okay.
not just the tiles they discard,
Uh-huh.
but the timing of it. Do they hesitate?
Oh, wow.
Are there any tells in their body language?
It's like poker.
It really is.
You got to have that poker face,
You do.
so you're not giving anything away.
Right.
But at the same time, you're trying to pick up on,
Those little clues from your opponent.
yeah, what they might have.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you use all of that to kind of build a profile.
So you're trying to figure out their hand,
Yeah.
while at the same time making sure that they don't figure out yours.
That's the game.
That's crazy.
It is.
That's a lot to keep track of.
It is. But think about it this way. If you know what your opponent is going for,
Right.
you can block them. You can hold on to the tiles that they need.
Could win?
Yeah. Or you can even try to bait them into discarding tiles that help you.
Wow.
It's a mind game.
It's like psychological warfare with tiles.
Exactly.
But even if you're a master of all that,
Yeah.
those random tile draws,
Yeah.
they're still going to have a huge impact on the game, right?
They do.
So you can't completely eliminate the element of luck,
You can't.
even if you're the most skilled player in the world.
And the article talks about this concept of Rinshin Kaihu,
Yeah.
which is basically winning by drawing the perfect tile at the perfect moment.
Like the one tile you need.
Exactly. And it can happen.
Wow.
It's part of what makes the game exciting.
Yeah. You can't rely on that.
You can't bank on
You can't go into a game thinking.
I'm just going to draw the perfect tile.
Right. Especially in a setting like the World Mahjong Tour, where
Yeah.
it's not just one game, it's multiple rounds.
It is. And consistent skill will always win out in the end.
Yeah, you might get lucky in one hand or one game,
You might.
but over time,
Yeah.
if you're consistently making good decisions,
You'll rise to the top.
you'll come out ahead.
Exactly. And even if you get a bad draw,
Right.
a skilled player can still minimize their losses
Oh, interesting.
by playing defensively, managing their tiles well.
Okay, so it's more about maximizing your gains when you do have a good hand
Absolutely.
and minimizing your losses
Yeah.
when luck isn't on your side.
Exactly.
That's really fascinating.
And that's what the World Mahjong Tour really shows us.
Right.
It's this structured format,
Yeah.
multiple rounds.
Right.
It really highlights
The importance of skill.
the importance of skill and strategy and making those decisions under pressure.
That's cool.
It really is.
And it brings us to this really interesting story that the article talks about
Yeah.
these two players, player A and player B,
Yeah.
who faced off in a high-stakes tournament.
Right.
And it kind of perfectly illustrates this whole dynamic
It does.
between luck and skill.
I'm happy to tell you about it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Okay, so picture this player A is dealt this amazing starting hand.
Okay.
The kind of hand that most players would dream of.
Like they hit the jackpot right out of the gate.
Pretty much. It
Okay.
was practically begging for a quick, high-scoring victory.
So they must have felt pretty confident going into the game.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Player A got so focused on this one specific winning combination
Uh-huh.
that they completely missed the bigger picture.
Oh, wow.
They were so fixated on this one path to victory
Right.
that they just stopped paying attention to everything else that was happening.
That's interesting.
They ignored the cues from their opponents. Uh-huh.
They didn't adapt their strategy
Okay.
as the game went on,
Yeah.
and they ended up making a series of bad decisions
Oh, no.
that ultimately cost them the game.
So even though they had this amazing hand to start with,
They
they blew it.
They did. They got tunnel vision.
Wow, that's a good lesson right there.
It is.
Even outside of Mahjong.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get fixated on one thing and miss all the other opportunities
That's right.
that might be out there.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about player B?
So player B is the opposite story.
All right.
They were actually built a pretty weak hand,
Oh, wow.
one that most players would consider a disadvantage.
Okay.
But instead of getting discouraged,
Yeah.
they focused on what they could control.
Interesting.
Careful tile management,
Ah.
paying close attention to their opponents,
Okay.
and being willing to change their strategy as the game went on.
So they were really adapting to the situation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as the game progressed,
Yeah.
player B's patience.
And this really calculated approach started to pay off.
Interesting.
They capitalized on their opponent's mistakes,
Uh-huh.
slowly built up a strong hand,
Wow.
and ended up winning the game.
That's amazing.
It is. It's a classic underdog story.
Right, because they started out with a disadvantage,
They did.
but through skill and strategy.
And patience.
Right.
They were able to overcome that.
That's a perfect example of how, even if luck isn't on your side,
Right.
you can still win through skill.
You absolutely can.
Wow. I'm starting to realize there's so much more to this game
There is.
than I ever thought.
It's really a mental battle.
It's not just about the tiles, it's about
The strategy,
Yeah.
the psychology,
Yeah.
the decision-making.
the mind games.
Exactly.
Okay, so for someone like me,
Yeah.
who's just starting to get into Mahjong,
Mm-hmm.
all this strategy stuff can seem a little intimidating.
I can understand that.
Where do you even begin?
Well, the article emphasizes the importance of really studying the game,
Okay.
going beyond just the basic rules.
There are tons of resources online.
Really?
Strategy guides, video tutorials.
Oh, wow.
You can even watch professional matches
Interesting.
and analyze their moves.
Okay, so it's like any skill.
It is.
You have to put in the time
do.
and effort to really get good at it.
You have to study, you have to practice.
And you mentioned practice.
Yeah.
There are also online platforms and apps.
There are.
Like the World Mahjong Tour has their own apps.
They do.
So you can actually play against people.
But all over the world.
That's awesome.
It is.
Okay, so that's the technical side.
Yeah.
But what about the mental game?
Right.
The patience, the discipline.
That's the real challenge.
Yeah, how do you develop that?
It's about training your mind to stay focused,
Okay,
not getting tilted.
tilted.
Yeah, when things aren't going your way.
Right, right.
And making rational decisions even when you're under pressure.
That's tough.
It is.
Especially in a high-pressure environment like the World Mahjong Tour. Absolutely, even the best players in the world are constantly working on that.
Really?
It's a lifelong process.
Wow.
Because Mahjong isn't just about mastering the technical skills.
Right.
It's about mastering yourself.
It's like a metaphor for life.
It really is.
You're faced with these challenges.
Yeah.
You have to make decisions.
You do.
Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't.
Right.
But it's how you react to those situations.
That determines the outcome.
That's deep.
It is. And that's what makes Mahjong so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's a game, but it's also so much more than that.
It's a reflection of life.
It is.
So we've been talking about how the skills you learn on Mahjong can actually help you in real life.
Right.
But I'm curious, like, how does that actually work?
Well, take tile efficiency, for example.
Okay.
That idea of getting the most out of each tile you have,
Uh-huh.
isn't that kind of like managing resources in a project at work?
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean.
Or even like managing your personal finances.
You got to make the most of what you got.
Yeah, exactly.
Whether it's tiles or time or money.
It's all about making smart choices.
That's a good point.
And then you've got opponent reading, which is basically all about understanding people,
Yeah.
figuring out what makes them tick.
Their motivations.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's super valuable in any job where you work with other people,
Oh, for sure.
like negotiating a deal or even just navigating a tricky social situation.
Yeah. It's like you're building empathy
You are.
and emotional intelligence.
Being able to understand what other people are thinking and feeling.
Right. And anticipate how they might react.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Okay, I like that. And then there's risk management.
Okay.
Mahjong is all about weighing those risks and rewards,
Uh-huh.
making calculated decisions.
Not just going with your gut.
Right, you have to think things through.
Yeah, that's a crucial skill in life, too.
It is.
It doesn't matter if you're making a big investment or taking a chance on a new career.
Or even just playing Mahjong.
Right. You got to assess the risk. And then there's adaptability,
Ah, yes, adaptability.
which it seems like is becoming more and more important
It is.
in today's world.
Especially in a world that's constantly changing.
Yeah, things are moving so fast.
They are.
You got to be able to adjust.
You have to be able to pivot.
And Mahjong definitely teaches you that.
It does, because the game itself is so unpredictable.
Right.
You never know what tiles you're going to get.
Right. You got to be ready for anything.
Exactly. You have to be able to think on your feet.
So it's like Mahjong is this training ground
It is.
for developing that flexibility.
That mental agility.
And that's something you can apply to any area of your life.
Absolutely.
Wow. It's really amazing when you think about it.
It is.
Mahjong, it's like this microcosm of life.
It really is.
It's got strategy, observation, decision-making.
A little bit of luck.
Yeah, you can't forget the luck.
You can't.
But it's how you approach all those things that matters.
That's the key.
And I think that's what makes this game so timely.
It is.
It's been around for centuries, and it's still just as relevant today.
And it's always evolving.
Right, there's always something new to learn.
Exactly.
So I think that's a great place to wrap things up.
I agree.
Mahjong, it's a game for everyone,
It is.
whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out.
It's a fascinating blend of luck and skill.
And it's a lot of fun.
It is.
So if you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend giving it a shot.
I second that.
Dust off that old Mahjong set or download the World Mahjong Tour app
Yeah.
and start playing.
And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination.
That's a great point.
Just keep learning and improving.
And who knows, maybe you'll get lucky along the way.
You never know.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Mahjong.
It was my pleasure.
Until next time, happy playing.